As you know, I represent Mr. Puana, and in behalf of Mr. Puana, who's not here today, I want to express his gratitude to, first of all, Mr. Silbert, who represented him successfully in the federal case that brought much of the facts to light, and in particular to the FBI and the Justice Department for their aggressive and highly professional handling of this indictment process. After 50 years as a lawyer, I never thought I would be thanking the Justice Department and the FBI, but so be it. They've done an incredible job in this case, and I think from reading the indictment, it's certainly a very difficult case to defend. Mr. Puana is going to cooperate in every way possible. He feels some degree of vindication that people now believe him when he said that he was framed and he was harmed by what took place. He certainly feels good for his mother, who was victimized in this process as well. And we look forward to the criminal case unfolding, after which then we will proceed with our civil case against some or all of the same defendants. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Was he aware of the other incidents with the charges with the bank fraud and along those lines? How much did he know about that?
Well, we're aware of some of the bank fraud cases. We're aware, obviously, of the financial issues because that's what gave rise to the retaliation against him and the efforts to try to keep him from coming forward with any degree of credibility when he essentially was in a position to make complaints about how his funds were handled. So we're aware of some of that. All of it? Absolutely not. I think the investigation that's been carried out in the last couple of years by the Justice Department and the FBI has filled in enormous details which we were not fully aware of, and I think those details have been very damning.
Besides your client, I know this has taken a toll on a number of people, including the city ethics office, the chief Chuck Totto, and then some of his investigators are also kind of tainted in all of this. Have you had a chance to talk to them at all, or what's your sense?
Well, I think, frankly, the next question that's going to be asked is, where was the mayor in all this? Where was the chairperson of the police commission? Where was the city attorney? Why weren't they conducting some supervision, and why didn't they do something when all of these allegations first came out and they clearly had some credibility to them? They've been sitting on their hands. In fact, as you know, they paid the chief $250,000 to go out the door in what was certainly a very controversial action. My sense is that the issues of oversight are right before us, and the scope of the damage that's been done by this group of people is yet to be determined. But my sense is that at least we're moving in the right direction, and we intend to cooperate in every way possible with the federal authorities who've been pursuing this case, and then to pursue our own civil claims at the appropriate time.
Will your lawsuit then include going against the city for letting this happen?
Well, our lawsuit is against the city. We have sued the officers that we've named in our case in both their individual and in their official capacities. All of this happened at the police department while these officers were on duty.
But including the mayor?
Well, I'm not going to name the mayor as an individual defendant, other than to say that I think that he had an obligation to supervise this, and he certainly has an obligation to come forward and reassure the community that in the face of this indictment, they're taking appropriate steps to see to it that the police department has good leadership and is being reeled in. But my sense is that we are suing the city in our case. They are the main defendant because this happened while these officers were all on duty. And the city apparently doesn't realize that because they haven't even filed an appearance. So pretty soon we're going to find them in default, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Do you plan to go after the properties that are owned by the Kealohas?
Well, as you see in the indictment, the government is asking for forfeitures of all those properties. We can't do that at this juncture. We have to get a judgment first. We may at some point have a falling out with the federal government about what happens when they seize those properties, and we might have to resolve that at some point down the road. But obviously, if we do get a judgment, we're going to want to collect it in any way we can.
How confident should the public be in the Honolulu Police Department now?
Well, I would be having very serious concerns. You know, this is not the only case, and it's not the only case that we have against the police department for some very, very serious conduct that's alleged in those other complaints. And up to now, at least, the way they've dealt with all those issues is to deny, delay, and they've taken no serious steps to either remedy or appreciate the seriousness of what they're facing. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the police department, but even more importantly, I have no confidence in the political leadership at the city level that they're going to take appropriate steps to cut this off and see to it that it doesn't reoccur.
So given that, do you feel federal oversight is required?
Well, I certainly feel that federal oversight is required, and if this were like Baltimore and some of the other cities where serious misconduct occurred, then the federal government would come in and would basically exercise some oversight. Unfortunately, under this administration, that's not going to happen.
And Eric, I know this is a small town, but there could be serious ripple effects. Do you think there ought to be some kind of rule as far as, you know, you've got one spouse in the prosecutor's office, one spouse in the police department? I don't know. Is there something we should be looking at?
I think it is something we should be looking at, and I think that, you know, the inability to supervise and to prevent these kinds of situations from occurring ought to be a very serious concern to everybody. And there's no assurance, just because the chief is gone, just because I would hope now Ms. Kealoha will be placed on leave, that those same kinds of things are not happening on a regular basis. There's no assurance of that. And unless we strengthen the police commission or create some sort of oversight that will be able to provide those kinds of assurances to the public, we won't have them.
What about the CIU?
Well, you know, I've been battling those kinds of units all my life, where they do intelligence work and they conduct activities which are marginally constitutional, if not unconstitutional. And I think a thorough inquiry needs to be made as to the methodologies and the kind of policies and practices that have been used by this department. We've seen massive lawsuits against other police departments in Los Angeles and New York and Chicago over their intelligence gathering activities and how that intelligence has been used or abused. So I certainly think an investigation of that nature is warranted here as well. All right? Thank you all.